tend to get bored faster, right? Because there's so many distractions. You got your house around you, correct? Whereas you've got the problem with being in person is it's hard to nod off during those meetings. But at home, man, I find myself getting tired, when we're doing things like this via video conferencing. I think we have Ravi, though. We don't see him.
Oh no, he's an egg avatar.
Ravi, can you hear us?
I can, yeah. For some reason, the cameras decided not to work right now. I don't know what the issue is.
That happened with me the other day, Ravi. I had to completely restart the computer to get it fixed. I was very annoyed.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to you because I'm respectful of your time frames in the show here. I'll give it a go before next time, so we can all see each other's beautiful faces.
Well, that's all right. We'll just look at your pulsating dot here every time you talk.
So much pulsating.
Oh, there's a lot of pulsating.
Especially in quarantine. You know what
I mean? We found out last night, when the official release came out of all the players that had declared, that Damian Jefferson also had his name in the draft, along with Denzel Mahoney. By the way, Denzel last night signed with an NCAA-approved agent, which means he does still have the option to come back, which is what we expected. Did it surprise you that Damian Jefferson also threw his name in the loop?
Not really. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really shock me when anyone throws their name in the loop. It's just see what the NBA scouts think of me, see the things specifically they want me to do and they want me to improve on before I have a chance to play professionally, whether it's next year or whenever that case is. So the only one that I'm kind of surprised didn't is Zagorowski. I mean, it wouldn't hurt just to see what his value is compared to them, but maybe he already has a better idea of what people want from him and who he is as a professional prospect. So honestly, anybody that's halfway decent in college basketball, it really doesn't shock me if they want to get an evaluation.
Ravi, we obviously spend so much time around here talking about name, image, likeness and what it will mean for Nebraska. But I'm curious, what do you think it will mean for Creighton? A smaller fan base, certainly, but a fan base that also has a lot of money. What do you think that this will ultimately mean for the Blue Jays moving forward?
I mean, I think it'll be a pretty big deal for Creighton, especially in the Big East, because it may not make much of a difference between them and, say, some of the blue bloods like Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, those types of teams. But if you think about the metro areas that the other Big East schools are in, you've got Philadelphia and Villanova, you've got Washington, D.C. with Georgetown, places like that. You've got big metropolitan areas. Creighton's really the only one of those where the basketball team is the biggest show in town, really. Obviously, you've got Husker football that permeates to Omaha, but in terms of college basketball and the winter season, Creighton dominates the sports scene in Omaha, and that's just not the case in any of really the other cities in the Big East. And so, to me, I think it's a huge advantage in some of their recruiting battles that come down to them and against other Big East teams. I mean, I suppose Providence could make that same argument, but people, I don't feel like in the Northeast are really clamoring for Providence the way they are with some of those other teams. I think most of those people up there either end up being Boston or New York fans. So I think it could be a really big advantage in terms of their recruiting battles against other Big East teams. Again, if you're going up against some of the blue bloods, it probably won't matter as much, but it might close the gap a little bit.
The other thing, you mentioned where Creighton has an advantage in Omaha, but obviously we all know Nebraska football is such a monster in this state that the cross competition for endorsements between Creighton basketball players and Nebraska football players, you would think Nebraska football players would be a little bit more popular there. So is there a concern that maybe you get overshadowed a little bit by the bigger school, who certainly has the resources and also the relationship with Open Doors to maximize their NIL opportunities greater than Creighton can?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit, but it feels like, at least to me, and it's mostly always felt like, there's kind of a distinction between Omaha and Omaha businesses and Creighton fans and Nebraska and Nebraska focused businesses and Husker fans. And maybe that's just from living in Omaha my whole life and that type of thing. But you see sponsors that go out of their way, whether it's, some of the sponsors that sponsor 1620, some of the sponsors that sponsors the Creighton shows that we do, that don't necessarily put that same money into Nebraska products. And so you wonder, to me, it's always seemed like there has been a distinction or a dividing line between Creighton focused businesses and where they pour their advertising dollars, and Nebraska focused businesses and where they pour their advertising dollars. So I'm sure there's going to be some overlap, but especially in Omaha, I think there's going to be plenty to go around, especially when you're looking at, on any given basketball team, you're probably talking about 2 to 4 guys tops that you're looking at giving money out to. So you're not looking at, on a football team, you could have 12 guys from the University of Nebraska that maybe you would want to give endorsement money to. Whereas on a basketball team, that's the entire roster. You're not giving money out to 12 guys. So it's a smaller number. I think there's going to be room for both.
Ravi, I don't think any of us are surprised that the NCAA doesn't want a union. A lot of the conversation today, of course, has been surrounding the video game component of it. But do you think that they can stave that off much longer? Like, is that another thing that you think, like another wall that will crumble in our sports lifetime? Because, we've seen how quick everything changed with just name, image, likeness. John had a quote at the beginning of the show from only 6 years ago from Mark Emmert, and it's just laughable today. I almost wonder if we could be viewing their staunch objection to the unionization of college sports and thus that's effect on the video game. I wonder if we're going to look back on the statements today and laugh at them in, 5-10 years.
Well, that's an interesting idea, because I think the unionization will only come about if the athletes don't get the things that they want. The unionization to me seems like kind of not a last resort, but something that the players only really want to go to if the NCAA is not caving on the other things that they want. I think the name, image, and likeness thing, if that works out really well, that could stave off the idea of unionization for years. Now, there's some point where the lesser players that are not seeing that money trickle down from name, image, and likeness and sponsorships and that type of thing, basically the bedrock non-star foundation of your programs, there's a point where they will probably want to unionize. But as the NCAA relents and gives more and more benefits and more opportunities to make money for these athletes, I think that pushes that. It kicks the can further and further down the road. It might happen at some point, but I think we see something else more dramatic, like just general paychecks for college players or something like that before we get to that point. But I really do think steps like this help delay it at the very least.
Ravi, we didn't talk about this in our opening segment. We focused a little bit more on the social media aspect of endorsements, which is certainly a new age way. But I have to wonder, especially in the college basketball world, how much the shoe companies, how much of their activities are now going to be more in view. And we all saw, with the FBI scandal, the FBI investigation, how important the shoe companies are in all of this. Well, now there's actually an opportunity here where a lot of that kind of activity could happen above board, where now shoe companies can come in and say, hey, this is this 5-star athlete who has agreed to come to this school, and it happens to be one of our schools. Now they can start to funnel some of that money above board to those individuals. I do wonder how, from a recruiting standpoint, this is going to impact players, shoe companies, and the schools that are represented by those shoe companies, and whether or not we start to see those relationships that heretofore we only were introduced to through the most recent FBI investigation. Now we're going to see it play out more in the open.
Yeah, I don't know how much it actually will change, because, as you mentioned, so much of it goes on already. But I do think you're looking at a situation where all of that does become above board and becomes a lot more I think the knowledge of it will become a lot more prevalent to the average fan, but I don't know. I mean, frankly, I don't know how much more influence the shoe companies could possibly have, because their influence, especially in college basketball recruiting, is already pretty dramatic. So I don't know if there'll be more influence. I certainly think there will be more public knowledge of their influence within that arena in terms of basketball recruiting. But honestly, that's going to be the biggest area where this name, image, and likeness thing has an impact, because, and especially in basketball, because you don't see it so much in football, but you hear it all the time if you follow recruiting circles at all, where people will be like, oh, he comes from an Adidas AAU team, he's not going to sign with this Under Armour team, that's just not going to happen. Like, I don't care if they're in his final three, he's not signing with an Under Armour team. And you hear stuff like that all the time. Like, that's just common practice and common knowledge in terms of in recruiting circles. So I don't know how much. Maybe there's a slight uptick, but it's already extremely prevalent within college basketball recruiting.
Robbie, one more before we let you go, kind of along these lines. What do you think this is going to mean for the bagmen of the world? I like, are we losing jobs? Will jobs be lost now in this new economy of name, image, likeness? Think of the bagmen.
Friends of the program, if you will.
Yeah. Right.
But no, I mean, listen, there's always going to be a market for things that are not allowed under the current system. So whether it's the, initial payment to get a guy on campus, or a little bit of walk around money, maybe the bagman's job looks a little different in a couple years than it does today. But I'm sure as long as there is billions and billions of dollars at stake, there will be a place for the nefarious activities of bagmen throughout the country. So I don't think they'll lose their jobs. They might have to, adjust their job description a little bit, but I think they'll be safe there.
Ravi Lulla, our pregame show host for Bluejay Shoot Around. We promise you, he really does have a great looking beard. We just don't see it today. Hopefully his camera will be working next week. But in the meantime, I hope everything else is going well, and you've made it through another. I mean, it's been a week since we talked to you, so hopefully you made it through okay.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I've added pretty much. I've got almost a full commercial gym set up in the basement now. It's pretty nice. So I'm going pretty good there. I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, along those lines, Robbie, Amazing Daniel had a theory for why your mic or your camera wasn't on. He says you skipped arm day and you didn't want anyone to see. Is that true?
That is not true. I haven't. I never.
Guns.
I never skip arm day. Number one. Number two. The gains don't go away that fast. Amazing Daniel. I've got a pretty sweet setup in the basement here. The gains are as strong as ever. So
good.
I'll be sure next week. Maybe I'll go tank top next week so you can see the guns.
Yes.
Gun show Wednesday with Ravi over here. Yeah, I'll flex next week for you. It'll be good.
And then we'll end up video casting his workouts, and it'll be great. It'll be educational for all of us.
It will. I might even be able to demonstrate that snatch that you've been wanting to see so much, John.
Oh, finally, Ravi will show us the snatch.
Honestly, it'd be very instructional for me, because it has been a long time since I've seen a snatch.
Dang it. I literally turned on my camera and microphone to make that joke. Why?
What? No, Ravi. I want Ravi to show me the proper technique for the snatch.
There's nothing I would enjoy more than to show John a proper snatch.
That's Ravi Lulla of Bluejay Shoot Around. Thank you, Ravi.
Hi, Ravi.
Thanks, fellas.
Hi, Ravi.
There he goes. There goes the black dot, the black and white dot.
Oh.
I'm so happy that
you like this. You want to go triple botch?
I hate when it shows up like this. I'll be honest.
I'm so happy that, after John argued for the Creighton guy not being a weekly guest all year long, that Stibbs and I were finally able to get Ravi on all the way through May and June and July, because then we get conversations like.
Have you taken up lying as a new habit? Because you are good at it. You are a good liar.
When have I lied before? Literally right now. When did I lie before that?
Many times.
You gonna give me an example?
pretty much any time you've opened your mouth.
That's not true.
That is true.
Now you're
That's very
accusing
true.
me of being a liar all the time. That's not true.
Yes, all the time. All right, we got more to come, including the results of Mitch Sherman's athletic survey.
A lot of surveys these days.
There's been a lot of surveys these days. We got plenty of time to fill them out. A lot of time to fill them out. But we've got to take a look at the Husker fan survey that he did for The Athletic, and there were some interesting responses. And we'll kind of compare them to where we were when we did this week or so ago. And we will have that when we continue. Want to say thanks to everyone who was watching in on the video stream. We'll be back with Chris Heddy in about 45 minutes or so and do it all over again after a quick word from our friends from John Higgins Weather Guard. We had hail here in Lincoln. There are so many roofing and siding signs in my neighborhood. It's crazy. Just keep the name in mind. If hail happens to hit your neighborhood, the rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard, the fairest roofing game in town. They have been friends of ours for a long time, and they can be your friend as well if you need a new roof or you need help around your gutters or your siding. John Higgins Weather Guard, 1620 The Zone.